Good morning, bedheads. Karen from Ask the Spirit Guides. How you doing today? Click. You know why I have this mug out today? Because you are your world's best boss. I am my world's best boss. So I bought this mug for that reason a while ago when I first started working for myself. And I'm like, you know what? I am the world's best boss for me. So I love that analogy for us, especially on this channel. So one sip and then I'm going to put my coffee down. I cannot turn my head today because you ever wake up with a kink? I got a kink in my neck. I'm waiting for my husband to wake up so he can get it out of there. It's not in my neck, it's back. I can hardly move my shoulders. But anyways, so before I get started with the thorn, with the talking about the splinter or the thorn, I haven't decided how I'm going to subject line this. But I wanted to talk real quick about the Mel Gibson. If you guys haven't seen that, if you have seen it, I'll just give you a quick synopsis. Of course, I haven't watched hardly any of it. The minute that I saw he was on Fox News, like I stopped watching it. So, because then I thought, this is a effing lie. This is an effing lie. So, this is the part I just want you to be aware of. So now apparently, again, I didn't watch any of it, so I'm going to take ownership for that I don't have the full story, okay? But I just want to say, if somehow he is blaming the state of California for the wildfires, then this is, I'm telling you, there's the patterns. You can't ignore the patterns, you guys. And I'm a big picture pattern person. You can't ignore the patterns. And especially because he's on Fox News. If he is blaming the state of California, which is the largest Democratic state in the United States, then you know dang well who did it. You know who did it. Just saying. And it wasn't the Democrats. So that's all I'm going to say. Just watch for that. And let me know what you think. I'm speculating, but the minute I saw that and I thought, oh, okay. So what that tells me is that, yeah, he's saying he doesn't think they were on purpose or that it was natural cause. And that I think he's saying that he suspects the state of California burned them down so they can put up high rises or something. I heard this kind of. So, because I can't stomach to watch the whole thing, because right away my cackles went up like, okay, my antenna's like, I know what you're doing. I know what you're doing. And apparently that video has like 100 million views. I'm hoping whoever watches that, I hope 75 million views of people are smarter than that. It's like the minute it's just been happening the entire time. Every time 45, every single time they say somebody did something, the Dems did something. It's that they did it. They did it every single time. It's just so obvious. Oh my God. So, I don't know. The Dems are going to have to, you guys, the resistance is going to have to be, I don't know. It's interesting. Let me know what you think about it. And I don't mean to be fear-mongering. I'm just saying their voices are loud and obnoxious and lies and conspiracies. Every time something happens, Trump will come out and say what it was before there's any proof. And people listen to him. It's like, no, there's no investigation, none investigation yet. Like the minute the fire started, he was on Twitter blaming. It's like, how do you even know? That is so irresponsible. It is the most irresponsible thing. And it's just, Mind-boggling. Mind-boggling. It's just my only hope is that most of the people listening to that are going to have the same reaction I'm having. But I don't know, you know? It's just freaking mind-boggling. Center. I just happened to watch that before I came on, so. Center. So that makes what I'm going to talk about. It kind of puts things in perspective for me. So, but anyways, I wanted to talk a little bit about how we, you have like, okay, so we've got stuff in our inside of us, right? That's been in there probably, every experience we've had, it layers and layers and layers. And there's good stuff and there's not so good stuff. There's good stuff and then there's stuff that causes us pain, And the painful stuff we're just slowly trying to unravel and pull out, or people will say peel the onion, it's like you have to here's your onion and you have to slowly peel away all the different layers of it because maybe you haven't dealt with it for 55 years or whatever, however old you are, and there's the core of what the issue is, but there's all these layers on top, right? So this one I kind of was thinking about of more like a thorn for me or like a splinter, like just pull the damn thing out for once and for all, And so this one has to do with shame for me. We all experience shame. I'm going to say that very confidently, but why we experience it is very different, so that will be extremely individual. I bet there is not one person who experiences shame for the same reason, for the same level ever. It's so individual. Okay. So I'm going to use some examples about me because that's how I'm communicating examples for you to think about you. Okay. So when I use these examples, I would ask that you don't need to say kind things about it in the comments because you guys are beautiful and I know you would, and I appreciate that. But that's not why I'm not communicating this for the support. I'm communicating it for a conversation. Okay. For us to have in the comments, because that's what we're doing at this community is looking for our own answers, and I'm just facilitating that conversation. Okay. So what I would love for you to do is in the comments is put like, what's your thorn and how long has it been there? So that people know they're not the only ones. Like I'm not the only one dealing with this thorn still or this splinter, And it's like, I have to say every time it gets pulled up just a little bit further, a little bit further, a little bit further. It gets wider and wider when I experience it. The time period of when I experience it gets longer and longer, but that sucker is still in there. Just pull it out. Do we ever just pull it out? That's my question. Do you think we ever just pull the dang thing out? We do for some things, I'm sure. There's lots of things I've pulled the splinter out on. Lots of things, because they never come back again, But I'm certain that if I looked at my 2025 intentions, again, you got to be careful what you wish for. Let me look and see if what the two prickly things that happened to me yesterday, and prickly meaning that splinter was like poking at me, Yeah, release the old. That's one of my intentions. Release the old. Oh, I put snack. It's elder snake. So snake is the spirit animal for releasing the old, but I put elder snack on my book. So I'm going to have to look at that. I'm going to look at that card today and see what can elder snake tell me today about what happened yesterday. Oh, and honor your sensitivity. I used a card deck, the elder animals card deck, to do some of my intentions for the year. And one of them was honor your sensitivity, and that was elder horse. So I might have to look at both of those today. Yeah, I think those are the two. So, okay. So, again, when you put your goals down and then you start having difficult experiences, the point is if I'm going to release the old has to bubble up in me, right? So I asked for it. It's like I asked for the bubble up of the old to come up to the surface so that I could release it, right? But again, you got to, if you're going to write the intentions, which is why I've got quite a few on my 2025 list. You got to be, one or two might have been better. And then honor your sensitivity. Well, if I'm going to honor my sensitivity, you'll understand when I give you these examples, because it made me cry last night. But I released, because I cried, that was my releasing of the old. I don't know if I pulled the thorn out completely yet, And what's really interesting is this, I got this book, The Astrology of 2025. Now, I've never really been like an astrology person in the sense of like horoscopy type of things, which this is what it kind of feels like. But it literally has every single day. Like here's January. And so I was reading them ahead of time and I'm like, they don't do anything to me. Reading this kind of stuff ahead of time doesn't really do anything for me. What actually does it is when I read it afterwards. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's kind of interesting. So I'll come back to this when I tell you a little bit about what happened yesterday, but and why I was feeling that way. So there's a couple things. And again, I'm not aware of this shame in myself every single day. It's just when it comes up, I'm like, wow, I still feel shame around that, So it surprises me. And so that's part of the releasing the old for me, So there was two things. Well, it came up, okay, and of course it's coming up on my channel because that's what I'm doing right now. That is how I'm expressing myself, okay? So, of course, and there's a lot of people paying attention to, or a lot of people watching and sharing their opinions and stuff. And for the most part, everybody is just freaking so lovely. And there's so many people who are offering other perspectives in a mature, kind way for the community. That's just how that's how you have coffee with people, that's how you sit down with a friend and you don't just sit there and, it's so interesting that when people write stuff, you need to say to yourself, would I say that in front of my friend? Would I say it that way? Or am I just saying it that way because it's easier and I can just type it, So it's just interesting, but I had already told myself, there's this like whole connection to this. I had already told myself that since there's so many comments, that when I go on probably 3 or 4 times a day and I, kind of look through the comments and I respond to some, that the ones I see will be the ones I'm meant to see. Okay. So I'd already told myself that like a couple days ago, and I've mentioned it on the channel a couple times. And so I saw this one last night, and I had already been feeling bad. I had already been feeling some shame about, again, there's 2 areas I'll go over that have caused me shame a lot in my life, okay? And that just come up from time to time. They just bubble to the surface. I just got to pull that splinter out. So the 2 areas are the one that I have a learning disability, undiagnosed learning disability. I've had it my entire life. I have always felt shame around it. When I grew up, we didn't do testing for learning disabilities. Yes, I could do testing now, but I'm not that interested. My soul is not telling me to go get tested for a learning disability. So you could say, oh, Karen, you should go do it now. But it's not something my higher self and I are interested in doing. If I did, I would go do it. Okay. So some of you who maybe have a learning disability and haven't been diagnosed with one might be really interested in that. And maybe I will at some point. But like so that's why you can't really say to me or to somebody else, you should go do this. You say to the person, oh, well, what are you inspired to do about that at this point? So that's really how you help people, is you help them find the answers to things. You don't tell people how to find the answers to things. That's not helpful. That's something I have learned in 30 years of counseling college students. So, and not as a professional counselor, but it's not rocket science when you've done it, when you've had thousands of conversations, not millions, but thousands of conversations, and 100 of them didn't go well, you figure it out, So you don't tell people how to do things. You can, and especially if they ask, then you can say, when I'm having conversations with people, you listen, you listen, you listen. And then when they're done talking, you say, how can I be helpful? How can I be helpful? And they may say, I just needed you to listen. Or they may say, can you give me your thoughts now? Or they may say, do you have any ideas on how I can fix this? Then you can offer, right? So I hope that helps somebody. So learning disability, and it's been challenging because it's been undiagnosed, and I didn't even know I had a learning disability until I literally am just recently saying I have a learning disability. It's so obvious I do. It's just so obvious that I have a learning disability. But I've never defined it as a learning disability before, okay? Now, I have a master's degree, so I have a learning disability and was able to get through a higher level of education with a learning disability and just managing through that, okay? Lots of different times, I could probably count them on my hands where I felt shame because something came up within my schooling that was so obviously embarrassing because of my learning disability. But again, I know I have one. It's so obvious. And the one that you might have recognized, and I do point it out, is that I have a very hard time spelling words that I haven't, or pronouncing words that I haven't said out loud before and that I haven't even seen before. It's not something like, I had a boss who could literally, she could, any word, and she was an English instructor. And so, and I have a niece who's an English instructor as well and has a master's in English. And I'm sure she could look at any word and know how to do it. And I could learn how to do that, but I'm not that inspired to do that. I don't really want to learn how to do it. It would take so much time for me to do that, And I didn't realize that I would be, from time to time on this channel, I've never, ever been comfortable reading out loud for that reason. And I didn't realize as part of this channel that I would be reading out loud, but I'm just been doing what I'm doing, And so every once in a while, in a live or something like this is why this came up in the last couple of days, because, over the last 3 months when I've been doing this, I've been saying, I don't know how to pronounce that word. And I read it and then I move on. And I've been fine about that, and nobody has commented about, people might have commented, but I haven't seen them. But it was just at the live, this last live, and then my angel card reading last night, that I started feeling embarrassed about it. So for some reason, from out of the 3 months, I started internalizing the embarrassment. It was embarrassing. It's embarrassing because I know logically, But my husband said to me last night, he's like, Karen, a lot of people don't know how to pronounce words. I'm like, oh yeah, that's true. I was starting to think it was only me, Last night I was doing an angel card reading and Navajo came up, and I know how to say Navajo, but when I was reading it, I couldn't get it out. I know the word Navajo, that one was obvious, but there was another word in there. I actually did do the pronunciation afterwards. And I was like, oh my God, I've never heard that word before. And I can't even repeat it now because that's part of my disability. I can learn it, but I lose it right away. So that's why it would take so much energy for me to learn it, go to school. And that's just not where my Spirit is telling me to land right now. That's not that important, okay? What's important is for me to uncover the shame around it. So that bubbled up. And then right when I was feeling that shame after doing the angel card reading, and you could tell if you listened to that angel card reading last night, the second time it happened, I was like, I'm so embarrassed. Like, it's getting embarrassing. Like, I started feeling it. That was the first time I'd like actually felt it. So my little splinter or thorn was like starting to go back in, instead of coming out. So then somebody, bless your heart if it was you, because you got the end of me on this, because I was feeling shame about it. So somebody then, and I think it was pretty rude if this was you. I don't know if this person will even come back to my channel after what I said in response, but because my little Aries fiery person came out, I don't let people say shit to me. Especially if I'm feeling sensitive. If I wasn't feeling sensitive, I would have been like, It's just the way it is, right? So anyway, so then the comment, and again, let's go full circle here. Like, I believe the comments I'm going to see are the ones I need to see. Okay? I need to see it. So then it brought up a huge amount of shame in me, because the second thing that I have been told my whole life as an extrovert, and especially an extroverted feeler, extroverted feelers extrovert their feelings, and it is innate in me, and it ain't gonna change. Okay? I mean, I can tamper it, but then, am I being authentically me if I tamper it? Yeah, I mean, of course, you're going to go, if you're in a professional setting, you are going to tamper it. Of course you are. But do you never express it then? Do you not express eventually, whatever? You know what I mean? Of course you're going to act appropriately, right? But so anyway, so this comment was, I thought it was pretty damn rude, to be honest. I probably would have thought it was rude anyways if I was reading it on somebody else's, and maybe you won't. But it was like, okay, and it's because I'm an extroverted feeler. Talk. And this person literally put that in and I don't have timestamps on, and I get it. I get the fact that sometimes I get kind of chatty in the beginning. I want to share things. And like, I realized like okay, then I should have done a timestamp of like 13 minutes. Like, it took me 13 minutes to get to the angel card reading. I get that. As a viewer, especially a new viewer, is not used to me in this community. But I also know there's quite a few people who like my conversation, because people have said that, okay? And that's cool too, But so anyways, this comment basically said, you talk about washi tape, your journal, your living room, like literally listed them out, and then went talk. And I was like, F you, just totally F you. Like, just the way that was written was so effing rude, in my opinion. But of course it brought like the just dug in. And I'd already been feeling shame. So I felt a huge amount of shame about that. So first I was F you because I was feeling the shame, right? So the F you came from the shame. If I wasn't feeling shame, I wouldn't have reacted that way. I wouldn't have been like F you. So it has nothing to do with that person. It really doesn't. I mean, that person needs to check themselves, because like, you could have just moved on. So, if it's true that we feel how we make people feel in our life plans, that person will have to feel how I felt by reading that comment. And that's not to shame her or him. That's not to shame that person. It's a great example. I mean, I do it too. I'm sure I have left many comments, so I'm not going to anymore. Because now, of course, it's probably coming back to me now. I'm sure I've left. I mean, I'm not sure I've left a lot of comments, because again, I've worked with a lot of people in terms of how important communication is. And so, but who knows? who knows? I mean, you never know how people are going to take. Words are so important, and how we communicate is so important. And we don't spend enough time on how we communicate with each other. We just don't. And every word you say can impact somebody in a positive and a negative way. We just don't spend enough time helping each other communicate better, or helping ourselves communicate better. We always think it's the other person's fault, If you take something the wrong way, it's because they, it's just this two, it's a whole thing, right? Not taking things personally, but also being impeccable with your word according to the 4 agreements and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, so like the whole talk thing, I was like, oh my God. So what I said back was, how about I be my authentic self? Click, my boss. And how about you be your authentic self? And then I said, I'm not comfortable with the box you're trying to put me in. Okay. And then I said, it doesn't work for everybody. I understand it doesn't work for everybody. And it's true. I understand that. There are 8 billion people in this world. I'm sure I can find 1,000 people who appreciate my style. And that's okay. It's totally okay. On the flip side, I get it. Rationally, I get it. Will I do better next time? Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't want people to have to wait 13 minutes. For me, I was just excited. I was just excited. I didn't even think ahead of time because I don't plan my videos. So, and that's my choice, because if I had to plan them, I wouldn't do them. So if people wanted me to plan them and edit them, and that's one of the reasons I'm not doing timestamps right now, because we don't have the people power to do it. It takes energy. I'm not spending my time on that. I wouldn't do this. I just wouldn't do it. I don't need to do it. I'm retired. I'm doing it for fun. Okay. So then, and then people want you to do it because it works for them. I don't do things that work for everybody. I do things that work for me first. And then I will learn like, oh, okay, well, I can do that. That makes it easier for people, meaning like, don't wait 13 minutes to get to the subject line. I get it. I totally do. From a rational perspective, I totally get it, So anywho, that's all I have to say about that. So what shame are you dealing, or what do you deal with on a rate? What's your thorn? It's like, oh my God, how much longer am I going to deal with shame about, having a disability? Like not learning things. Like I literally, part of my learning disability is that, and I keep saying I have dyslexia because I know I do, because I've read about description of what people have dyslexia. So one of them is not being able to pronounce words. And the other one, like, I'll say the opposite of which way that's like the traditional way you think of dyslexia is and it's only with right and left. Like if I'm driving or if my husband's driving and I'll say go left, I actually mean go right. So I don't know if that specifically is dyslexia. I don't know. Maybe someday, maybe I will go get tested just for fun. I'm not sure I would do anything. I literally for fun, like learning stuff about myself, I might do that. But I literally, and it's been like this, I can't memorize stuff. Okay, I can memorize stuff, but the amount of energy and time it would take for me to memorize anything, I would never get anything done. I just wouldn't get anything done. So multiple choice, that's why it's so dumb, you guys, the whole multiple choice thing, because some people are so good at it and some people have learning disabilities around it. And okay, yeah, I crammed. I had no other choice because I had to take multiple choice tests. I'd cram. The next day, I knew nothing. I didn't retain. So the retention, people who have retention, you guys you were born with that. That's the other thing you guys got to remember. Everybody's got to remember. is that we were all born with the brain cells that we have. And if you have something that other people don't have, you didn't necessarily earn that. Now, you might have earned the knowledge around whatever knowledge you have, of course. But the fact that you have like a photogenic memory or you retain things, that you did not earn that. So please remember that when you are critical of people who don't have whatever you have, whether it's that or something else. We have to remember that you have to remember what were you born with and what were you not born with and what were other people not born with. Just because you have it, it's just, we just have to remember those things. Because sometimes people act like, and I remember feeling this way, like people would act like, oh, well, it's so easy for me. Well, yeah, because you were born with that. You didn't earn that. There's a difference. That's how I feel about it anyways. Okay, so the last come full circle on this book. Okay, so now actually I read this morning. So I had a good cry last night, talked it out, felt better. Okay, so I was able to bring that thorn up a little bit, and now I'll feel even better having talked it out with my therapist. Thank you. Did you know you're my therapist? All right. So now January 15th, that was, January 15th and 16th. Okay. So yesterday was the 16th. There's nothing in here for the 17th, just so you know. That's today. Okay. So January 15th to 16th, Sun opposite Mars. That might mean something to a lot of people. It would never mean anything to me. Again, I don't need to learn that. So conflict may occur from an unwelcome visit. I'm like, dang. And then it says, you might feel or act more combative than you planned. Totally. Maybe my response could have been a lot more combative to that comment yesterday, rather than let me be my authentic self, you be your authentic self. But man, did I want to just say F you. I really did. You might feel or act more combative than you planned. Avoid choosing sides or being caught between warring factions. That didn't apply to me. So did anybody else feel this yesterday? January would be the last 2 days. That conflict may occur from an unwelcome visit. Be careful not to overassert yourself and come across as aggressive or pushy. You might feel or act more combative than you planned. Avoid choosing sides or being caught between warring factions. So maybe from time to time, we'll look back over the last couple of days in here. I'll read them and then you can say, oh yeah, that's why, just kind of interesting. So anyways, what are your little thorns today? What have you been working on? Look at, I cannot turn my head. You got any thorns that you'd like to just pull out of there once and for all? Geez, oh Pete's. I did another video on triggers and it's really the same thing, It's really the same thing. I think the video is will we ever stop being triggered? It's the same thing. I was just being triggered on something else, but life. But I'll be stronger now. I'm stronger now. I'll be more effective. I want to be effective. Of course I want to be effective. So do I say, yeah, like I come off like, I don't care. I'm going to do it my way. La, 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 la. Yeah, of course yeah, that's my Aries kind of like in my personality type. Just, I'm doing it my way, It's a song. I'm not going to sing it. I might get a copyright strike. But, 2 or 3 days later, which apparently is part of my human design, is letting things sit for a couple days, which totally makes sense because I'm totally like that. I'll hear it after a couple days. So there's all these different things going on, right? And think of how many of those you get bombarded with a day. And especially creators, people who are putting themselves out there one way or another. When you put yourself out there, and that You're teaching. If you're teaching, you're putting yourself out there. Well, we're all putting ourselves out there. Doesn't matter. If you leave your house ever, you're putting yourself out there. So we're all putting ourselves out there. So think about how many messages you get daily that you have to process through, you know. And when I did my human design, I was talking about this yesterday, and I think Coffee with Karen, my human design chart, which I think is the birth chart, same thing, astrological chart, I think it's the same thing. I don't know. It could be a totally different theory. It's called human design. But the person who designed human design, now I forgot what I was going to say. Dang it. I had a point. Hang on a second. It's a good thing I wrote this down in my journal. My human design, because I wouldn't have been able to recall that, I don't think. But anyways, so they said most thoughts, and I don't know if this was referring to my own human design. She said, so basically, because my aura is 6 feet around, now this might be for all generators, so if you know human design, you'll recognize this, that our aura is 6 feet in diameter all the way around us, and that we can get clarity, like if you go out in public, like go to the grocery store, you can get clarity just by being within 6 feet of people, because you can kind of feed off of their aura, and it will help you get clarity on things. So if you're like feeling depressed, or if you're confused about things and you've been kind of by yourself for a while, you may want to just make sure you just get out and go to a store. You don't have to interact with people, but just kind of, or go to like a bookshop and sit in a coffee shop and you're sitting like less than 6 feet near people, because you might get clarity just from their aura. Okay. I think that's fascinating. But anyway, so she said, most thoughts are not my thoughts. They're the collectives. What? I put most thoughts are not, your thoughts. So I don't know if that's for everybody, but 66% of the population are generators, and I'm an emotional generator. But did you know that most thoughts are not our thoughts? They're the collectives. So that's why we always have to center ourselves to know which thoughts are, and so I wrote, I need to center myself to know which thoughts are mine. And I'm like, damn. And maybe that has to do with the aura, you know? And then my next one is, I'm meant to make mistakes to learn from them, you know? And I think that's part of my human design. Maybe not everybody is meant to make mistakes to learn from them. But that was specifically. And what's really funny is right when I wrote that, look what time came up. I wrote it, 333. I was listening to the video on my human design because I had recorded it, my session. I wrote that and the time came up 333, and I actually wrote it over here, which is my mom's number for me. So she visited. I always go, hi, Mom. Isn't that funny? Anyways. It's so interesting. But I got to explore. Do you guys know anything about that? Have you ever heard that before? That not most thoughts are not your own. They're the collectives. Because if we thought about that for a little while, I think that would help us to just really understand that most of your thoughts are not yours. What the? Well, and I think she said my chart especially, my combination, again, which is, well, there's maybe 2 or 3 people if they were born at the exactly same time and place as I in the day, is that I have a lot of chatter in my mind. So maybe that was specific to me. I have a lot of chatter, and that I will always have energy to sustain me through the day, which is true. So, although I do have a couple cups of coffee that help, but. So yeah, so if you were an emotion, anyways, I don't know if anybody else understands that, or if that's just my chart, but anyways. All right. Well, I'd love to see what you guys think about all this. I love reading the kind comments, or, let's just say respectful comments, professional comments, being impeccable with your word type of thing, because it helps everybody in the community. So, all right. Make a comment, leave a comment that will be helpful for others, not just me, helpful for each other about all this. So, all right, have an amazing day. We'll see you later. Oh, tonight I'm doing part 3 of Donald Trump's soul contract. We have enough questions, so we're doing part 3, which has been really helpful for people, and it's been helpful for me to understand more of why he's here and doing the stuff that he's doing. So, which leads me back to the whole Mel Gibson thing. So it still pisses me off, though. It still pisses me off. Again, I might be just making up stories in my head about that, but I don't know. I'll have to see what you guys think. So, all right, have a good day. Bye-bye.